Okay.
Well, we are blessed today to bring to the listeners of Yacht Rock Miami, of course, that spans the globe, the audience of Yacht Rock Miami, because they have hooked us up with an exclusive interview with John, one of your heroes, one of my favorite bands, and I could not be more excited to be welcoming to the waves of Yacht Rock Miami, Mr. Burleigh Drummond, the drummer of Ambrosia. Burleigh, welcome.
Hey, Tom. Hey, John. Thanks for having me.
Another drummer. So we're really outnumbered. We had one bass player so far, and I think we're up to 3 drummers. So,
yes.
Well, drummers, they like to talk.
We'll have to get Joe on in the future. So,
yeah, he would love it.
Absolutely,
he would love it. Yes.
Well, the specific occasion of our getting a chance to talk to you today is an upcoming show that the band has at in the Miami area. It is at the Gulfstream Park, and it is called Legends of Yacht Rock. It seems to be, if I'm not mistaken, promoted in partnership with Yacht Rock Miami, and it's going to feature obviously Ambrosia, but Peter Beckett, the voice of Player, as well, and that is Sunday, May 15th at 7 p.m. at Gulfstream Park. So, Burleigh, you excited for the show?
Oh, yeah. And the promoter, Kim Riley, is an old friend. And she's probably one of the best people in the business, seriously. So it's always a joy to work with her and to play at that venue. Great venue.
Yeah, you've played it before, obviously. We noticed you've got some other shows coming up, which we'll get to in a minute. But why is Florida such like a centerpiece of what appears to be your touring?
I don't know, but every night I get on my knees and thank God for Florida, because we must play probably 10 shows a year in Florida, and God bless them. They keep having us back. So yeah, I mean, if every state did that, we'd be flying high. But Florida is great. Yes.
You've got I know you've had an ongoing tour that some dates before, some after, and you have different people with you. I noticed you've had John Ford Coley with you, but as Tom mentioned, we've got Peter Beckett on this one, who we interviewed a few months ago now. But will Peter be performing with you at all, or is he purely support act?
No, we back Peter up. A while ago, I mean, before Yacht Rock was even, as big as it is now, we were doing something called Ambrosia and Friends, where we would play and we'd have, friends, artists come and join us. And, we did everybody, Edgar Winter, Stephen Bishop, Michael McDonald, you name it. We played with them all. And it was great for us. And I take great pride in our band, Ambrosia, being able to do that, being able to accommodate all these other artists. And it was great because, I'll tend to go on, so you jump in and stop me anytime. But, when in the 70s, when we were all happening, and having the hits and so forth, I mean, we were all kind of in our own little worlds. I mean, we would tour with the Doobie Brothers or with Heart or even, you name it. We toured with Fleetwood Mac when they were making it. And but we were all kind of in our own little worlds. You would talk to people, but you wouldn't play so much together. But so now it's so great that, all those that were sharing the stage with these people and then sharing, their music, like Michael McDonald in particular is amazing. And so it's a highlight for us to play with Michael McDonald or Stephen Bishop or somebody of that quality.
Yeah. So back in the 70s, then you were, as you say, even if you didn't think of it that way consciously, it was competition. You were competing for ticket prices, album sales, and all that. But now those same artists have all reached a sort of almost a community kind of status with each other, right? And you're kind of sharing the love amongst each other and touring together and all that stuff. But we should go back to the 70s for a second, Tom, and maybe work our way forward, since Burleigh took us there.
Well, could we just go back to the 70s and just stay there?
I like that idea.
It was a good period, but you nailed it. It's become a community now of where we can share the successes and, ups and downs that we had, and realize that we were all going through the same things, so we can celebrate the fact that we're still alive and we're still able to go on the stage and play these songs, and people still react to them. So it's a pretty good world right now.
Yeah, John, did you have a question about the Wayback Machine?
Well, I did. I mean, I kind of wanted to chronicle through that. Maybe we'd work our way back forward and kind of culminate with kind of resetting the tour and all that. So the band was formed 1970, according to Wikipedia, which, we all know that they're always spot on, but
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. First album, 1975, engineered by Alan Parsons. Had a modest probably hit on that one. Nice, very nice.
Oh, no, that Holding On to Yesterday was our big hit off of that.
Oh, that's right. That was the one that went top 20. That's right.
Yeah. And then, but now, I mean, it was in the top 20, but some stations, like in Colorado, we'd go to these stations. Of course, you used to do that all the time. You would go to the stations on the road to plug your records. And we were really excited one station because we beat out One of These Nights by the Eagles. So we were number one in that market. So that's what's so funny about the United States is you could be number one in Colorado and number 39 in, Texas, so. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. But the band, you go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I guess my question kind of, I'm looking at my notes here about Nice, Very Nice, as well as that album. It feels like
a prog album.
It's a prog album, but it's not just prog. It feels like it's British influenced prog, because, and maybe that's the Alan Parsons connection, why he was involved in it, but I can hear maybe hints of Yes and hints of Genesis and things like that. So my question was a two-parter, which you've probably been asked many a times. What kind of bands and things were influencing you at the time? And then more specifically, as a drummer, who were you influenced by?
Oh, sure. Well, okay, let me set this record straight on Alan Parsons. First of all, he came in to mix the album. So he mixed the album. He didn't produce the album. It was kind of self-produced. And Ambrosia at that time, I have to even go back before we started the album. We were signed to 20th Century Fox, 20th Century Records, and Russ Regan was the head of the label. Russ Regan discovered Elton John and Olivia Newton-John, Barry White, a lot of different characters, and Neil Diamond. So he had a pretty good ear. So he came out. He asked us to do some demos for him to listen to kind of get a feel for where we were going with our album and help us with the direction. So we did about 60 songs, full demos. I mean, that were record quality. And at that time, Ambrosia did everything from country to R&B to prog. And prog was where our heart was at. And so we're a combination of singer, songwriter, and prog. So, but what that resulted in was the prog that we wrote had melodies and songs to it. It wasn't like how fast you could play or how complicated you could play. It was about, writing a little kind of fantasy musical setting to a song. And that's really what Ambrosia was about. And our influences were Traffic was a huge influence. I mean, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, all that stuff. But one thing that really changed the band and really changed it was one night seeing King Crimson at the Whiskey A Go-Go. That changed everything, because then it was just like, that gave us license to go, be as crazy as we wanted to be, like on songs like Mama Frog and, the real adventurous stuff.
Right.
So, yeah. So Russ Regan came in and heard all these songs, and he was very complimentary about everything, but he picked three. He picked Nice, Holding On to Yesterday, and Mama Frog. And he goes, everything else that you're doing is great. He goes, I have this already. I said, but these songs, I don't have that. He goes, if you could give me an album of that, and that's so that was like, yay, let's go, So our first two albums in particular were more prog based, and Alan went on to mix and produce the second album, Somewhere I Never Traveled. So he was with us for a couple records. And now, as far as me personally, everybody in Ambrosia brought their own interests.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Joe in particular was Rolling Stones and singer-songwriter like Jackson Brown. Dave was Beatles. I mean, Paul McCartney in particular, and Chris was the blues. And, like that helped shape something like Holding On to Yesterday, the kind of bluesy approach. And I was kind of the world beat guy. I was studying with Alla Raka from Ravi Shankar and master drummer from Ghana. And, UCLA, I was an ethnomusicology major. And so, all that came together to make Ambrosia. It was kind of everybody had their strengths and and they all came together, and it all just kind of meshed into becoming what the sound of Ambrosia was.
Well, speaking of that sound, so, John and I are hosts of something called a Yacht Rock Podcast, right? So we look back in time, and it's obviously a different perspective, and we see a handful of songs that are outliers from the rest of the Ambrosia catalog. And I'm just wondering if you remember what was happening, how intentional was it when you started to dabble in the sound that we would call today yacht rock, that didn't obviously exist back then, but there's elements of R&B, as you mentioned, there's all these other elements, and then there's this super melodic side of what you do as well. How did that evolve, and why?
Well, okay. When we were doing our first two albums, the only way we could survive financially was 5 nights a week. We played one block down the street from the studio at a female gay bar at night. And we did that for years. And that was all R&B. That's what they wanted to hear. So songs like "Living on My Own," "Biggest Part of Me," "How Much I Feel," "You're the Only Woman," "Dancing by Myself," that all came out of, what you play. What you play nightly kind of infiltrates what you write, and start. So that whole side of Ambrosia started to develop, and that's probably the biggest impetus for those songs, coming around. I should say that, okay, like "How Much I Feel," that was pretty much outside the sound of Ambrosia when we did it. But our feeling was, okay, we all realized it was a good song, and it was a great song. Mm-hmm. So our feeling was, hey, if the Beatles can do "Yesterday" and "Rain," or you name it, they could get so far out and yet so far in at the same time, that we kind of thought, why can't we? Why can't we have a very pop hit and still be the prog band? Right. So, and
that's why I want to go back to the 70s. Exactly, because you can be that diverse. Now you do something that's a hit, they want the very next one to sound just like it.
Exactly. And I think that's been the death of music to some extent, a death of great artists. I remember going to festivals and seeing the Monkees and Jimi Hendrix and Donovan on the same stage, and it's like, it was fantastic,
Well, this is my dream, Burleigh, is to create a yacht rock festival. And it could be 2 days, and we're bringing Kenny and Michael and Chris and the whole lot, you guys, player. I'm going to leave this up to you, obviously, to coordinate. But wouldn't that be just a dream come true? And then we could all live in the 70s.
Well, it's an apple waiting to be picked. It should be done. There's these cruises. That's probably the closest thing that happens in that world. But I've never seen a cruise named the Yacht Rock Cruise.
That's just begging to be right.
Yeah, there it is.
There's something that's been overlooked. Yeah.
So let me ask you a quick question. Going back to the topic we just broached about the sound and. Again, my words are the outliers. So I read somewhere that there was speculation that the album title 180 was a subtle sort of reference, or at least it was inferred to be, the band is making a 180 and we're changing directions. Is there any truth to that? And if not, set the record straight. What does 180 refer to?
No, it did come out in January of 1980, but that was just by chance. But you're right. It was the band thinking that we were going to strive to do kind of a 180. But in retrospect, I don't know how much of a 180 we did. It's pretty hard to totally turn 180 away from your roots and everything that you've become.
Yeah, so I still hear some of it in there. I do. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So I think yeah, I mean, as much as we may have tried, I think there's a lot of sounds and feels that stayed in there.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go back to your first big hit. I had another question lingering about that one. The first big hit, of course, is How Much I Feel. Number 3 it went to on Billboard Hot 100, number 2 on Cashbox. Can you pinpoint the moment, whether it was during the songwriting, during the sort of working up the arrangement, during the mix, or not till it was out on the radio? Can you pinpoint the moment when you realized you had that thing, that zinger that was just going to launch?
Yeah. I pretty much when we started recording it. When we started recording it and we were hearing it back, we were realizing, this is probably going to do pretty well. We had some misgivings about it, whether this was a direction we should go, but then the argument won out. We wrote it, we played it,
Yeah.
Why would we give it away? I mean,
we're glad you did.
Yeah. So we did it, and we got some not some good critiques about it too, because at that time, there was FM and AM, and the hits were on AM. So How Much I Feel was on AM, but the FM stations were the first to really embrace us, because we were doing the prog, and we were doing, we were America's answer to Yes and King Crimson, Gentle Giant, and all that stuff. So we'd put out How Much I Feel, and even though Life Beyond LA was on the same album, we'd go to these stations and they'd go, "You've deserted us, you traitors," and it's kind of like, oh, come on, we're just doing, the best music we can. So, but nowadays it's so funny, because nowadays we do How Much I Feel, and we do The Brunt, or Somewhere I Never Traveled, or Nice, and it all seems to work together.
Yeah, right.
It's like really, what was the big deal all about, But so I guess time heals everything. Yeah,
it does. And you had then 2 other massive hits, of course, on the 180 album that Tom was referencing. Was there any, whether it was self-made internal pressure or record label pressure, to recreate sort of How Much I Feel? How much pressure was on you, like I say, whether it was self-made or label made, that you had to do it again?
Well, yes, you do feel it. I mean, even if it's unspoken by the label, they want it, because they're putting all this money into the budget. They want to reclaim their money, For some reason, there you are. Okay. Yeah. So there was a certain amount of pressure, but we still did it anyway.
I'm curious from my perspective, because I was, how do I put this without sounding, I'll just say I was too young to listen to deep cuts in the 70s. So my exposure to Ambrosia was more so happening in modern day, in remembering the hits. I remember that song, and they're so nostalgic for me. And then I go and explore the rest of the catalog. I'm kind of doing it backwards, right? So I get drawn in with the hits, and now I'm discovering all this wonderful prog. And to me, it's pure joy to get to go through the entire catalog. I'm curious, as you're doing these live shows like the one you have coming up Sunday and the rest of your tour, they're sort of being billed as yacht rock shows, right? And how much of the broader catalog do you play, and what's the reception from the audience that's coming there for yacht rock?
Well, it's a surprising reception, because like you, a lot of people are coming for the hits, especially when it's billed as a yacht rock or something like that. But we've had nothing but good reactions to, and we get comments all the time like, I didn't know, I didn't know you guys did all that, and now I want to go get those albums and stuff like that. So I think it's important for Ambrosia to do the prog side. And prog is a little bit misleading. I just call the musical side, or the more musically adventurous side.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Because I think it is worthy, definitely. And I think a radio can almost make anything a hit by repetition. So it's like, if you hear something in the course of your lifetime 1,000 times, it's probably gonna register as something that was a hit. Whether
Roundabout is a prog tune, but it was a big hit too. So
yeah,
that's a perfect example.
There you go, right there.
Now, when you got into the 80s, you started carrying 2 keyboard players at one point, and I noticed that eventually, for a period of time, it was Bruce Hornsby. I'd love to know how that came about.
Well, okay. So after we did, I think, the album Rhode Island, I believe, there was a period where one of our keyboard players, David Cutler Lewis, who went on to join a band called Shadowfax. Ambrosia had finished the album, and it was kind of in this period where we were waiting to see if we were going to be able to tour on the album and what the reactions were going to be. And David Cutler Lewis hooked up with Shadowfax, and which went on to win a Grammy doing that. And so in the interim, we had befriended Bruce Hornsby, and he had come to Los Angeles to try to make his career. He had yet to have success, and so he's sleeping on everybody's floors and stuff like that. And so he played in the band. Yeah, and man, Ambrosia eventually. I mean, he was with us for maybe a year, almost, not quite. And Ambrosia kind of took a break at that point because our business, our contracts, everything was so bad that everybody was making money except Ambrosia. So we basically stopped, and to air out, and it was that's another story. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because I met my wife. We started a family. All those things that are hard to do when you're on the road 200 days out of the year or whatever. So, but Bruce has become one of the biggest influences on me musically, without a doubt. Just his desire to become the best musician and writer possible, and what he'll do to do that. He'll shun on. He'll turn away from commercial success just to have musical success in his own mind. So I'm not putting down commercial success. I'm just saying somebody that respects his profession, or respects his art to the point of doing that.
So, John, forgive me, but I'm going to jump ahead to present day, and then we can hop around a little bit, because since we're talking about some band members, I thought we'd go through the lineup and you can educate people who don't know about some of the newer players.
Sure.
3 original members: yourself on drums, Joe Puerta on bass, and Christopher North was a founding member, correct, on keyboards?
Yes, he was.
And then we've got some new players. I want to end with Kip, but let's start with Mary Harris on keyboards, because she has an interesting career herself.
Yes, Mary. Mary's my wife. I don't know if you know that.
I did know that. That's why I wanted to start there.
Yeah, and she's my keeper on the road. But so Mary, she came from a small town called Three Rivers, which is in the foothills of the Sequoia National Forest, and she was kind of a local star there. But she came to L.A. to start her bigger career. And she did amazingly well. She was in an all-girl band called Red Shoes that did well. And then she toured with Jimmy Buffett for years. She became his vocal arranger, arranged the vocals on his album. Then she hooked up with Animal Logic, with Debbie, I forget her last name, but the main singer. Debbie Holland and the Animal Logic. And then when Ambrosia started reforming and coming back, my wife's correcting me as I talk here.
Yeah. She could get on the podcast too. Have her step into frame. Yeah.
Well, okay, Mary, you want to come talk a bit? No, she's getting ready for the gig.
All right.
Yeah, good.
But so yes, I'm sorry. So
so she toured with Jimmy Buffett.
Michael. She did Michael DeBar, all kinds of artists.
Bill Champlin.
Bill. So her and I both play with Bill Champlin, and that's an education. I call him the professor because he's
We've taken the course. We actually took the course a few weeks ago.
Yeah, one of my favorite people. He's amazing.
Well, his definition of West Coast AOR, by the way, is a little bit of pop, a little bit of rock, a little bit of R&B, and a little bit education.
Yeah.
There you go.
Adult chords.
Yeah.
Lukather says,
He's great. So when Ambrosia started reforming, we'd be lacking a member from here. We'd either be lacking a voice or we'd be lacking a keyboard player or even a lead vocalist at times. And Mary is, to me, I may sound prejudiced, but she's one of the best musicians I've ever known. She could step in and fill any role. So eventually she just ended up being in the band, and she's she is indispensable now. She's kind of the core rhythm section, and great soloist, great singer, great harmonizer.
Yeah.
So
the utility player that finally gets a start, and then you can't get him out of the lineup.
That's right.
There you go.
Walter Pip.
Yeah.
And then we have another Douglas Jackson, plays guitar, and he's just a brilliant guitar player out of Texas through Colorado. Was doing a lot of kind of fusion-y playing, but can play anything. Great player.
Well, and I'm looking at his website, and it says he has worked with the likes of Kenny Loggins, Michael McDonald, Dave Mason, Al Stewart, Gary Wright, Edgar Winter, worked with Abe Laboriel, Jeff Beccaro, Jimmy Earl, Dean Parks, obviously Ambrosia. This guy has the yacht cred.
Yeah. Well, that's just showing off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
hey, if you can do it, do it.
A lot of those artists he mentioned are artists that played with Ambrosia, so that's how he played with them.
Gotcha.
So but it's credit. It's good credit.
And then tell us about Kip Lennon on lead vocal.
Okay, well, Kip comes from this amazing family. This standard in the entertainment business called the Lennon sisters are his actual sisters. The Lennon sisters that you just used to see on Lawrence Welk and everything back in the day. He is the youngest of 13 children, and they are the 4 oldest of the 13 children. So it's just insane family of music, and most of them are musicians and are musically talented. So, and he has his own band called Venice, which is a really, really good band. It's a pleasure to have him. But I have to say that on this show we're doing Sunday, can I go there? Okay. On the show we're doing Sunday in Hallandale, we are really fortunate to have one of our former singers with us, Shem von Schreck. And Shem is the wonderkin. He's played with Don Felder, Christopher Cross, Kenny Loggins. He just finished being the bass player and background singer for Toto. Wow. So, and he played with us for years and years and years. And he's finally realized we're the best gig he could have. So he came back. No.
Those bass lines that, too bad he, Joe's going to hog the bass probably though, but still.
But he's an amazing singer and he plays acoustic guitar, and he'll be singing with us on that show. So, yeah.
And then does Peter get up on stage with you, or do you get up on stage and do a whole set with Peter? How does that work?
No. So we'll do typically what we do with artists like Peter or John Ford Coley or, you name them, we'll do our show and then we'll bring them up as a special guest, and then we'll back them up because nobody does it better, and then we'll back them up and they'll come join us for an encore or something like that. But it's great.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it is. Well, where are you guys based? Miami or where?
We're Detroit.
Oh,
Yeah, the closest you're getting to us is
Grand Rapids in the summer.
oh yeah,
Oh.
New Haven. I'm gonna make that somehow.
Or Grand Haven.
Oh, okay.
Grand
Yeah,
Haven.
great.
Can I ask one more old question, Tom?
Well, you are an old person, so go ahead.
All right, thank you. I know we are jumping around, but it was kind of a rush job prepping for this. So I guess this kind of loops back to your, if we want to call it, because Prague is the only word I know how to use. So we're going to go back to that just for the sake of, simplicity. Rhode
Sure.
Island, the Rhode Island album, James Guthrie in as producer.
Yes.
He, Pink Floyd, The Wall, Final Cut, stuff like that. Definitely a prog cret guy. What was the process or the decision making that made you decide to go in a new direction? Sonically, it's different. Obviously, that's part of what you brought James in to do. What was the process of making that album?
Well, okay, that's kind of a strange story. So when we were at Warner Brothers and we had, we were riding high on the 180 album, having all these hits, one of the main guys from Warner Brothers took us out to dinner. I'm having trouble thinking of his name, but it'll come. And during the course of the conversation, he goes, you guys, he goes, I appreciate you having these hits, but he goes, I was the one that brought you to Warner Brothers and I wanted you to do the progressive stuff.
Mm.
So we're sitting there, well, why didn't anybody tell us?
I had 3 albums later.
It's like, yeah. So, we thought, okay, let's go back. I mean,
License to Prague.
Let's see what's left in that. So we went back and we kind of made an effort to kind of rock it up a bit, take it a little further out, and I think it's a great album. But when it came to Warner Brothers, by the way, that guy passed away before the album was delivered.
Oh wow!
So it goes to Warner Brothers, and the powers that be at Warner Brothers goes, "What's this? Where's the biggest part of me?
Yeah,
where's You're the Only Woman?" And we're going, well, So anyway, I really think though on that album, "How Can You Love Me" should have been put out as a single. I thought it was a hit record myself, but
yeah, didn't someone just send us that song, Tom? I think that's the one that's exactly.
Well, that's the one that has Bruce Hornsby in the video.
I'm working from memory, but isn't that the one you said where there's like no hi-hat drums until the end or something like that? Does that sound familiar, Burleigh?
No, there's hi-hat in that one. That the one you're thinking of is beginnings or endings. I think it's called. Anyway,
I'm sorry. Anyway, I digress.
Cool. So you got what I would consider a national tour plan this summer, right? You're all over the states, everywhere from Michigan to California, Utah. Do you ever get out of the U.S.? Does Peter try to drag you across to Europe, or any plans to do that?
No, we don't have anything at the moment. We play 90% of what we play is in the United States. We have a guy that brings us to Saint Martin in Ecuador.
Mm-hmm.
We have gone to the Philippines several times. We have done Japan several times. But no, we're pretty much an exclusive United States band, which Canada, we did a lot of Canada, but we would love to tour more internationally for sure. We were kind of an underground hit in Europe when we came out, especially the Prague. The Prague was bigger in Europe than the hits were. So, I did several albums over there in Europe for other artists, and I mean, they were in awe of the Prague material. I mean, they hardly mentioned the hits,
John, I had a couple questions that I've been dying to ask anyone from Ambrosia. So this is a thrill and an honor. Thank you for being on the show again. But one is going back to you organizing this sort of tour because of the resurgence of what we now call Yacht Rock. Do you or the guys in the band, can you pinpoint a time where you started to notice this resurgence and thought, what's happening? Like, how did this all come back to you? Because if you go back 15 years, I don't think you're playing the amount of shows that you're playing, and maybe I'm wrong, but was there a moment where you guys started to take notice that this is happening?
Oh, definitely. I mean, definitely. It's probably been going on at least for the last 5 years, and maybe even longer. I mean, yeah, it's funny, and I attribute to it. I think that was a period of great songwriting. Where people could relate to the not only the commerciality of it, but like Bill Chaplin said, the writing was at an all-time high, and musically, verses, choruses, bridges, like real song structure, great artists, like Michael McDonald, Kenny Loggins, Ambrosia. I mean, they were good, and not only good, but they were good ensemble too, where they could go out and play, and they didn't have to rely on tracks or auto tunes or anything like that. They were the real deal. They could go play it, and I think it's the quality of it, and it's something that will last. I mean, I'm delighted that it has come back, because it's given Ambrosia a whole new audience. 30-year-olds with sailor hats on, and they're all shit faced, but they know every lyric.
Hey.
So it's like,
well, my kids are teenagers, Burleigh, and they absolutely adore Yacht Rock. They love Ambrosia. They know how much I love Ambrosia. But the reason I find that interesting is because of what you just said. It's a type of music in a sophistication and complexity that isn't done anymore. So for when they hear a song and they like it, There's no nostalgia predisposing them to like it, like there might be for me. They just love it because they don't hear anything like that. And this gives me hope that there could be not only the resurgence of everything you did, but newer artists like, Young Gun Silver Fox and State Cows, and John's wearing his shirt. He's got a band called Page 99 influenced by this. That maybe newer artists will pick this torch back up and relight it for future generations.
Well, that'd be nice. I mean, I don't mean to say there aren't great artists out there today. I think there's some phenomenal. My son and my daughter are always presenting me with amazing artists. So I think music is in a healthy state. Maybe not what we're hearing on the radio all the time, but I think good music will rise. Will get noticed. I hope so.
Well, I have one more drummer question. So
okay, sure, man.
Well, because you said, I got my rototoms back there, so that's my main instrument is drums. So
I love rototoms.
Yeah. You say you've had other artists play with you, and you become the support band, the backing band for them, whether it be Champlin or John Forcoli or whatever. Have you been ever in a situation where you were forced to have to learn and master the Purdy Shuffle?
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, well, Joe and I had to play with, we had to be the rhythm section for Toto on a gig.
Well, there you go.
Benefit, so, but that, it's a rite of passage for every drummer.
I haven't made it yet.
Yeah, you have to play the Purdy Shuffle.
I know.
And yeah, so yeah, but for sure.
When was that, Burleigh? When were you the Toto's rhythm section?
Well, it was just a one-off, and it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, we had they couldn't fly their rhythm section out, and we were on the same benefit with them, so they asked us, could Joe and Burleigh just play these 4 or 5 songs with us.
Excellent.
So yeah, it was an honor.
I will say, yeah.
John, was it Tristan Bowden that pulled the mid-song bait and switch with Jeff Porcaro back in the day?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
You ever hear that story, Burleigh?
Hold the line. They managed to do the switch mid-song.
Oh, wow.
And nobody knew. And Lukather turns around and there's Tristan Bowden playing out the tune. He's like, what's going on?
No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And Jeff's up on tambourine now.
We're both great drummers. So
yeah, no kidding.
See if you can pull that off Sunday at the Gulfstream Park in the Miami area, right?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Hallandale. Hallandale. And so there's a show with Peter Beckett, the voice of Player. Is there anyone else on that bill besides you two?
I'm not sure if John Forcoli's on that or not, but definitely us and Peter Beckett for sure.
Well, I wish I could be there. but we'll have to wait till Michigan.
We have 2 chances in Michigan, I see on the tour. So we have Grand Haven, and then we have something else later. So,
all right.
Great. Well, this was a lot of fun. So glad we could do this on short notice. Thank you to Yacht Rock Miami for setting this up for us. And I guess do a great show. And we wish we were going to be there.
Yep. Hey, Tom and John, thank you for having me on your show. It's great.
Well, come back and bring the rest of the gang with you.
Okay. I'm sure they'd love to. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, thanks again.
Okay.
Right. Well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And if you get bored, 2 episodes ago, we did an entire show on Biggest Part of Me.
Oh,
top to bottom song analysis. So you can tell us everything we got wrong.
Well, I'll tell you a little story about Biggest. At that time, I was studying with the world famous drum teacher, Freddie Gruber, who had me doing this release on the playing the hi-hat.
Yeah.
And so during rehearsals with Ambrosia, I wouldn't stop playing that beat. I drove everybody crazy, but that's the beat for Biggest Part of Me, Living on My Own, and about 5 other Ambrosia tunes. So see what you can do when you just refuse to play anything else.
Yeah. We actually talk specifically about the hi-hat work on that because some people think it sounds like it's a little bit of a shuffle. And I kind of point out that it's more the velocity difference that that does it. So we actually focus on that. We cover that.
It's called push-pull technique. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I called it tug and something, but yeah. Yep. I didn't know it was a term, but we talk about that. Cool.
Oh, good.
Well, now we have bonus content for the podcast.
That's right. I'm gonna have to edit that in. All right.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Burleigh.
Okay, guys.